Hey, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today we're going to jump into some thoughts on taking care of your body, using social media to your advantage, strengthening your mental game, and also we got a little something for the coaches as well. So let's get right into it. All right, guys, before we jump right into taking care of your body, I wanted to give you a little bit of bonus content today, real quick. Have you ever had that friend or that person in your life that just makes everything seem like it's awesome and good? Every idea you have, every idea you bounce off of them, or every conversation you have, it's always great, right? And that person for me is my best friend. He lives out in Los Angeles. I call him Pistro. His name is Patrick, but we talked about an hour and a half before recording this episode, and he actually just quit his job. Today was his last day on the job. We talk. He's like, "Hey D, I'm actually gonna take a flight to Italy for about 4 or 5 days." And I'm like, "What? I love it. Do it. Go for it." And he's such a free spirit, much like I am. But I share that with you because I think about that a lot. There's people like him, I'm sure, that are in your life. But if you haven't found your Pistro, quote unquote, I encourage you to do that. So felt like that's a good food for thought to kick off this episode. But in terms of the content that we originally scheduled, let's jump right into it. And the first one again is taking care of our body. And I think about that. I was thinking about that last week actually, as we were discussing the college exposure and the many ways to do that. That actually got me to thinking a little bit about how sometimes student athletes, we can run ourselves into the ground, or we can allow just the environment or our coaches, even to run us into the ground. Sometimes, on the coaching side of things is not intentional, obviously, but it's just the nature of the beast, so to speak. And I think about the softball players that I get an opportunity to coach. I love to coach so much. In a calendar year setting, those girls are with me from about mid-February through mid-July, right? And then mid-July to mid-October, depending on their school ball playoff run. I know, like in Georgia, we have school ball from basically July to October. I know many other states do spring softball, but here in Georgia, we got fall softball or whatever for school. And so basically from mid July to mid October, though, they're in school ball, and then right on the heels of that, they come right back with me, and we wrap up mid December. This year, I think our last tournament's December 16th. So that's like third Saturday in December, right? And I think about that. That's a grueling schedule, right? Where they're going mid February to mid December, and they don't really get much of a break in there. I mean, with travel ball, obviously, we're making contact twice a week, 3 times a week, usually at most, where we have a couple of practices, and then we'll play on the weekends, and of course we skip weekends, we skip holidays and things like that. But ultimately, they're kind of locked in on their game from mid February to mid December throughout a year. So that's not a lot of time. That's really only 2 months, really, a month and a half on the front end and 2 weeks on the back end of the year, where they truly get a break from the game. So in terms of taking care of your body, one of the things that I think about a lot is prioritizing an off season. And when I think about prioritizing an off season, I'm thinking about having the appropriate rest, making sure that we're getting in solid workouts, making sure we're getting in yoga, right? There's a lot of different things, reading materials, strengthening the mind. All of those things I think come into play when it comes to having a very strong off season, a healthy, productive off season, without exactly running your body into the ground. And so, first of all, I think about rest. You know, I pick on my players. Some of them sleep a lot, it seems like, but some of them I feel like it's like, hey, I'm gonna go to bed, but I'm gonna be on my phone, right? And I was looking this up. I looked it up, did some research a couple of days ago, thinking about this, and the average teenager spends about 7.5 hours on their on their on well screen time rather, whether it be on their phone, computer, tablet, whatever the case may be. And in addition to that research, that's about 40 to 45% of a teenager's waking hours, like how many hours you're awake throughout the day. So that means we're looking at a screen for 40% of our day as teenagers right now. And honestly, that's kind of a lot to think about. And so, what I would say on that, guys, is that as we say, hey, I'm going to rest, I'm going to lay down, I'm going to go to sleep, maybe put the phone down and then, meditate, think about some things, listen to some music before you actually fall asleep. Because there's more research that proves that it's really tough to have a good night's rest right after you've been looking at your phone, and then boom, that phone goes down and I'm falling asleep. Right. So again, I think that's good. 8 to 10 hours is important. I think 8 to 10 hours is good for just our overall well being. Right. I think it's good for physical recovery, just mental strength, the whole nine. Good rest is great for our bodies, and it's something that can really allow us to function at a very high level. And again, it's not just about functioning for the next tournament or functioning for the next game. It's just being able to function the next day in life, and just going through your day-to-day activities. So actually resting, I think, is important, especially during your off season, and using that to your advantage. The other thing to me is having a good strong workout, where when you're working out and you're thinking through, okay, this is what my regimen's going to be. Right? I'm going to spend 5 minutes here, 7 minutes here, 10 minutes here, whatever. You go and you get you a good half an hour, 45-minute workout, whatever you like to do. But working out the full body, working out the muscles that maybe don't get used as much with your sport. Like, I know, like swimming, I talked to some swimmers before and they're like, yo man, we use every muscle in our bodies. Right? But I know softball players, baseball players, maybe we don't use every muscle in our body per se like a swimmer would. So I think it's important to make sure that we have a balanced body in terms of our muscle tone and things of that nature as well. The other thing is reading. Holy cow. I can't tell you how important reading is. And even if reading, I think about reading, I think about, listening to a podcast like this, or listening to something on Audible or whatever the case may be. But strengthening your mind and getting yourself into some books and motivational settings that can allow your mind to really begin to stretch and grow beyond, just what you know right now, you know. And I think also about that, on that same note, when it comes to reading, share it with other people. Be willing to go out and say, "Hey, listen, man, I had this really good read. Took me a couple hours to read it or whatever, and I took some notes on it. I think it would benefit you too." Again, always thinking about other people, I think is a great, just going back to last week's, topics of attitude of gratitude, and just being willing to do for others. I think it's always great when you pick up a good book and being willing to share it with somebody else too. And then as far as the workout's concerned, kind of back to the workout piece of the off season, guys, man. So I got a chance to talk to two or three football players, college football players, and they were telling me how much yoga has truly changed their life as far as their body and their physique and just their mental too. Because you think about yoga, I mean, it strengthens your flexibility, right? Your balance is better. You're relaxed when you're doing yoga. Therefore, it allows you to meditate, and allows you to just, have just a better mindfulness type setting. And oh, by the way, it's proven to prevent injuries, right? So again, so many advantages to yoga that I love to talk about, that I love to hear about from other folks who get a chance to really dive into that. So again, making sure that you prioritize an off season is a great way to take care of your body. Another way that I think is incredibly important, and again, this is all year round, not just in the off season, is winning the war in the kitchen. And I don't know if that's like a book title. I think it should be a good, that would be a good book title to me. But if I'm going to write a book about, doing what you got to do from a dieting standpoint and having the proper, kitchen time, so to speak, winning the war in the kitchen, I think, is important. And studies have shown 50% of our food intake should be fruits and vegetables. And I know for me, like, that's not the case. I'm a carb it up guy. I eat meat a lot. I mean, I do eat fruits and vegetables. Definitely not 50% of my diet though. And I think about that, like, I mean, as a student athlete and as a coach, as a parent, for everybody, I think what we put in our body is so important. And we want to make sure that we take care of ourselves, right? From a longevity standpoint and also from a peak performance standpoint as well. And I think that, you know, everybody is different, right? All our body composition is a little bit different than, mine may be different than yours. I'm a 28-year-old male. I'm relatively healthy, but you may be younger or older and you may, look a little different than I do or whatever the case may be. But either way, I think we can all design, right? We can design our intake for us and make sure that we are, making it what we want and tweak it, so to speak, to how we want to make it happen. So again, winning the war in the kitchen, I think, is equally as important as getting the proper rest, doing the yoga, working out, strengthening the mind, getting good books and sharing those with other people. I think all of that comes together to make sure that we have a very productive time in our off season, but also in season when it comes to taking care of our body. So we're going to take a quick little break here, and I'm going to shout out one of our sponsors as always. Appreciate you guys hanging tough. Today's episode, again, is going to be one that hopefully expands your mind, especially with our open book segments. But again, real quick, let me share one of our sponsors with you, and we'll be right back. Hey there, thank you for tuning in as always. Impact Financial Alliance is one of our biggest sponsors. I am the CEO of the company. And as I mentioned last week, we are specializing in the financial services industry. There's also a huge business opportunity that comes with what we do. And so often, business and jobs become our life. And we try to show people what it looks like to make sure that that doesn't happen for them. So again, if you're looking for a business opportunity or if you're looking for something that is a little bit different off the beaten path, check out impactfinancialalliance.com or give me a call. Thank you. Okay, guys, welcome back. Social media use. That's what we're going to talk about right now, how to use that to your advantage. But before we even get into using it to your advantage, I know I'm talking to some teenagers. I can even be talking to adults about this as well. We have Facebook, X, Snapchat, Instagram, just, TikTok, you name it. There's so many social media platforms out there. The average person right now has 5 different social media accounts, right, between all of those platforms and then some. So I think it's important that we make a note always that we don't compare our everyday life to other people's highlight reels. Okay? Because at the end of the day, we want to be able to present our best version, right, of ourselves on social media. But again, it's about you, right, projecting who you are, your real self to the world, not about you comparing yourself to somebody else. So I don't know who needs to hear that, but if you're listening right now and you need to hear that, just keep that in check, because the girl next door or the guy next door, they are who they are, right? And they go through everyday life just like you do. And they post their highlight reels, quote unquote, on social media just like you do. So it's not fair to you, right, to compare your struggles to their high moments. So again, that's just my little quick nugget on that front before we go into how to use it to your advantage as an athlete. So anyway, let's segue. Talk about that for a second. I think there's there's some personal ways to use social media, and I think about for me for a second, and I don't even know if I did this on purpose, but I was looking back through my personal pages on Facebook and Instagram specifically, and definitely on Snapchat, because Snapchat's just a lot of my daughter and just random moments. But I think about my social media and kind of the lanes that I've created, so to speak. I've got sports lane is that I kind of stick around. I've got my faith, my family. I've got the the very rare rant that I go on social media. Like I said, very rare, like once a year, maybe about something random. I got a lot of humor, dad joke type stuff, on social media, and those are kind of the lanes that I like to stay in, for the most part, on a personal standpoint. But then I think about this for you guys. You can do the exact same thing, right? You can kind of tailor your social media to what you want it to be. And if it doesn't fit in one of those lanes, then it probably doesn't fit into your social media platform. And I know every student athlete out there knows at this point that, oh, college coaches are watching, right? Well, yeah, they're watching, but that shouldn't be the only reason you make sure that your social media is clean, right? I think that we should all be willing, so to speak, to put our best version, our best foot forward, to the world, and make sure that we present ourselves in a way that, is a good reflection of our family name, and a good reflection of the people around us, and also in our circle. So again, it's not just about keeping it clean or keeping your nose clean just so that a college coach doesn't look the other way. That's a good reason to do it, but that shouldn't be the only reason, I hope. But beyond that, so we have our personal social media, but I was talking about X as well, or Twitter, formerly Twitter now. And I know that everybody uses Twitter these days to post videos and things like that. So I thought through about 4 or 5 different just keys to making and maximizing that platform specifically. And some of you may use Instagram as well, but again, I know that X is one that gets used a lot. So number one, when it comes to making sure that our Twitter, or excuse me, X platform is one that's a quality one for college coaches, I think number one, we should be authentic, right? We want them to be able to see who we are, who we truly are, and not just some, false version of who we are, right? I think showing your true character, showing, your family, whatever you want that to look like. Again, at the end of the day, you want to be authentic on that front, because I hear the girls, right? The girls are on the softball team that I coach, and girls from other teams, and just girls in general. I know, ladies, you guys use the word fake a lot, right? And y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay, you know what I'm talking about when I say that. And when you're talking about somebody who's being fake, and I know that you guys don't like to associate with fake people, right? And so I think it's important to know that a college coach probably doesn't want to associate with somebody who is quote unquote being fake as well, right? So again, be authentic, be who you are, be willing to share again your best version, but also your less than best version as well when it comes to just the authentic version of who you are. So I think that's important. The second thing is share your progress. Be willing to share your behind the scenes. I follow this one player. Or I guess I don't follow her, but our Elite Diamond softball Instagram page follows her, and so she's done a great job. I think she may be a junior or senior now. I think her name's Chloe, but she does a great job of sharing quotes on her Instagram page. She will share her training and just everything that she's going through, to be able to hopefully get to whatever pinnacle that she's shot for thus far. And so it's really cool to kind of see her journey, because she has created this specific Instagram page for her softball journey. And so again, she's showing different drills. She's providing inspiration to other people. And I think that's my third point as well, is be willing to provide some tips and advice on just things that you've learned throughout this process, because everybody's journey is so different, right? When it comes to reaching your full potential and trying to get to, whatever pinnacle of success you're trying to reach, we got different avenues. Okay, we got different avenues that we're going through and that we're going, after. Therefore, be willing to share your experience, man. Share it with other people so that, hey, maybe they can, learn from your misstep, right? Or maybe they can, learn from your win, your victories too, right? So I think that's always cool, to do that. Number four, share your highlights, of course, right? I think that's an easy one. I think, I have a lot of hobbies. You'll probably learn that over the next few weeks and months to come. But I have a lot of hobbies, and one of my hobbies that's coming up here in the next any day now, really, is I referee high school basketball. Okay, and I can't tell you how often. I mean, well, I can. I'm talking to you right now, so I can tell you almost every day that I get a chance to referee a high school basketball game. Usually, it's a couple of times a week. There's a player on the court with his. It's usually a male player, but he usually has a personal videographer or a personal photographer. They're taking pictures or videos or whatever. And again, absolutely nothing wrong with that, brother. Do your thing, get yourself on the map, do what you got to do to get there. However, I know that everybody wants to share their highlight reel. Okay, so it's not hard for you to know that. It's not hard for you to probably do that either, right? But again, I think it's important to be strategic about that, making sure that one, you're doing it often, being consistent with that, and not making yourself look like you're somebody you're not. Okay. For example, I'll give you the opposite example of that. There's a guy that I know of. I referee kind of in the central Georgia, northern central part of Georgia association for refereeing basketball. And there's a guy in the association. I've watched him grow up, and very big fan of his. And I've watched him since his freshman year, and now he's a senior in high school. Yeah, he's about to be a senior this year. He's going to senior year, and I've watched his highlight reels, and I've also got an opportunity to referee and officiate many of his games. And what I've noticed is that he's become a very good dunker of the basketball. Now, here's the thing: if he only dunked once in the last 3 years, it makes no sense for him to put that in his highlight reel, right? But this guy is dunking regularly, therefore it makes sense. Okay, so again, be consistent about what you're sharing, about what you're posting, so that it's again the most authentic, most real version of who you are in that moment, and over a stretch of time. So those are my 5 keys. Be authentic. Okay, share your progress, give other people some tips, share your highlights, and be consistent on what you're doing. So we're going to take another quick break, and we're going to jump into the open book segment right away. I've got some really great questions from you all. Thank y'all so much, by the way, for that. And I feel like it'll be pretty good beneficial for you as I answer these. Be right back. Hey guys, thanks for pausing with us again. So I want to shout out one of our sponsors, Hike the Mountain. And Hike the Mountain's run by a gentleman by the name of Jay Thompson, who is my father-in-law. And he says here right on his website, he says, if we want to get from where we are to where we want to be, we must be willing to hike the mountain. And what Jay does is that he partners with companies as they hike up Culture Mountain to create an exceptional workplace where extraordinary work is done by bridging the gap between belief and behavior. So if you have any questions about what that could look like for you, your company, or your organization, go check out hikethemountain.org. Thank you. Okay, guys, welcome back. We're getting ready to start our open book segment. Got a couple of questions here for you. And actually, quick note on that last topic that we talked about there before the break. Hey, ladies, specifically, quit adding people to your private Snapchat stories that you don't like. Okay, don't do that. And y'all, and if I just hit you in the heart, then I'm definitely talking to you. Okay, and there's some of you that we're making eye contact right now about this. So stop adding people to your private stories that you don't like, and stop going into people's private stories that don't like you. Okay, if you don't like somebody, that's cool, no big deal. You don't have to associate with them. All right. So again, another little quick food for thought right before we start a segment there that popped into my brain during the break there, and I wanted to share it again. So, all right, open book segment, guys. Thank you. First of all, thank y'all so much for the questions. We had a couple of dozen right out of the gate, and then I think we've got like another 10 to 15 more. So, if you've asked questions, I promise you we're going to get to them here on the show. Again, we've had some really great ones, and I want to always make sure I weave them into the show properly to make the flow go well. So we'll keep those going in a good fashion. Okay, so first one is from Alan H. And Alan says here, can you share some advice for coaches who have parents that can be tough on them? And Alan, I feel you, brother. um, no, I'm kidding. Well, actually, I'm not kidding. But here's the thing: I've been blessed with some really great parents. However, I think that when it comes to dealing with parents, it starts with setting the proper expectation. And I don't think that that expectation requires an initial come to Jesus meeting, or like a parent teacher or parent coach conference type thing or whatever. Like, you don't have to, like, I don't get all the parents on a phone call and say, hey, here are the expectations, here are the do's and don'ts, yada 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 yada. I don't do that. However, the way that I coach sets the expectation. The way that I communicate with them, the way that I communicate with their daughters and their sons helps set that expectation. Um, but to your question, Alan, because we talked about, I called you about this question, and we talked a little bit more about it. And it sounds like for you and for most coaches out there, PT, or playing time, what we call PT, is typically the main gripe that we hear. Okay, and for me, I coach 18U girls, and so the typical kid on a team that I'm coaching is somewhere between 15 to 18 years old. So my communication about playing time is typically directly with the player. It doesn't involve the parent. And again, I love my parents, seriously. They have been phenomenal. So if you know any of the parents of players that I get to coach, like, give them a pat on the back, kudos, whatever, because they have certainly allowed me to do what I do at a high level, and kind of staying in their lane, so to speak. But again, every now and then you may have a parent or two or whatever, or some of you coaches out there, you have parents all the time that's doing that, and I think it's important to set expectation. Um, but also, part of that expectation should be that conversation specifically about playing time should come between player and coach, not getting mom and dad involved on that front. Now, here's the thing for the moms and dads out there. I don't know how your coach does it, but here's how I do it. And I always consider this fair. Now, again, I'm a travel ball coach, so this is different than maybe a college coach is going to answer this. And probably even most high school coaches are going to answer this a little bit differently than I am as well. But as a travel ball coach, the guarantee that I'll lay on the line always is that our players, if you're there that day, then you're going to play in what we call pool play. Pool play are the games before the single elimination or double elimination bracket begins. So everybody's going to get pool play time. All right, guaranteed, no matter what. So everybody's going to get to bat. Everybody's going to get to see the field on defense, those type of things. But when bracket play rolls around and the lights come on, it's time to get dubs, right? It's time to get a W. And so, not and I say that laughingly a little bit, but when I say it's time to get W's, that means that I'm going to do what I feel is best as a coach to help us win that specific game against that specific opponent. Okay? Because I always believe that styles make fights, right? Some teams out there hit pitching, velocity, higher velocity pitching very well, right? Some teams can't hold a candle to a changeup, right? So that may dictate who I throw, right? Some teams very aggressive on the base pads. That may dictate who I catch, right? So again, there's reasonings and rationales for every move that I make as a coach, and families out there, if you're listening, your coach is probably the same way, right? They make certain moves based on who you're playing and certain matchups and things of that nature too. So again, I think it's important, guys, to set that expectation specifically about the playing time, because again, that seems to be the main gripe when it comes to having to deal with disgruntled parents or what have you. I think another one is being approachable. Okay, because here's the thing. you guys have a common interest, right, coach? You and that parent both have a common interest in their daughter or their son. Okay. And so I hope, right, if you're coaching and if you're in it for the right reasons, then I hope that you genuinely care about their son or daughter, much as they do. Now, again, some parents only care about their son or daughter. They don't care about anybody else on the team, but that's not the case for everybody. However, my point is be approachable and don't be a jerk, right? Because we coach. I think coaching is a calling, and so because coaching is a calling, that means that you are there to serve other people. For me, it doesn't have to be for you, but for me, coaching is my ministry. So it's my opportunity to be a blessing to these young men and young women through my coaching abilities and what I say and do for them on the field between the white lines and off the field. Okay, and so with their parents, if their parents have questions, be approachable enough to answer the questions, or and again, there's a time and place. Like in the middle of the game, probably not a good time to ask me about playing time. Matter of fact, it's definitely not because I am super locked in. If you ask the parents, I would hope the parents would probably know I'm very, very locked in at tournaments, and so much so that I have to catch myself sometimes because I'll forget to like speak because in between games, like I'll be writing up the next lineup card, or I'll be scouting another team, or I'll be kind of just engaged on what just happened in the previous game or whatever. So I'm like locked in on coach mode, and I need to look up and be like, oh hey, there's Max mom. Hey, so again, my point is be approachable enough to make sure that they can get their questions and they can get clarity on things that they need as well, because sometimes people just have honest questions and they just want to be able to hear from the coach that is investing so much time into their son or daughter. And I think there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So again, be approachable, and then I think also when it comes to the communication factor, I think you need to be clear about that. I know that I use GroupMe. I know there's different apps out there for group communication and things like that. But my goal with every GroupMe message that I send out on a weekly basis, or sometimes twice a week, is for parents not to be calling me or texting me asking me questions. Like I want to make sure they have every single detail that they need, and for the most part, like I don't really leave much out. And if I do, they'll check me on it, and I'll oops my bad, fix it, whatever, we're good to go. But again, when people have to ask you questions, coaches, after you've sent out information. Not that that reeks incompetence, but it's like, oh my gosh, all right, will he send the address of the ballpark, please? Or will he tell us what field we're actually going to be? Just those little things that, and travel ball coaches, you know what I'm talking about. Travel ball parents, you definitely know what I'm talking about as well, right? So again, it's just having that effective communication, I think, sets that standard that okay, this coach, he or she, they're on top of their stuff. Therefore, I can trust them, to do what's right by my kid. And I think that also alleviates other issues as well when you have effective communication. I hope that my parents watching this, my parents, of players watching this, that you'll check me on that if I'm not being clear about that. So again, effective communication, and then also reconfirm why you're there, reconfirm why they're there, and reconfirm what the role is and identify that. And if they don't understand their role, then that's where you got to make sure that you're helping them. Not in a mean way, not in a way that's condescending or what have you, but it's important that everybody understands their role. Because if you're saying, hey, as a parent, I'm going to allow that coach to put his coaching hat on, therefore I'm backing off and I'm going to let him or her coach my kid. I'm not going to coach my kid from outside the fence, right? So, coaches, that's what that looks like. Um, don't take it out on the player though. If a parent's giving you crap about something, or if they're all up in you, man, just make sure that you be an adult about it and you separate the two, right? You make sure that you treat your player how she needs to be treated on the field, and that you don't, do anything that would be damaging to him or her because mom and dad are, potentially being too much for your liking. So again, coach, I hope that helps you. And I guess, last resort, you got to give him the boot, you know, and sometimes that's what you got to do, and there's, although I want to avoid that at all costs, that's what you got to do every now and then. And I've only done that a couple of times in my 5 years. Unfortunately enough, with those players that I've had to do that with, my relationship with them today as adults is tremendous, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And even with their families, it's a very good relationship too. So again, sometimes it can be beneficial for that player or family to be dismissed. It can be beneficial to the team, and it can be beneficial to him or her. Again, it's not something I prefer to do, but as your last resort, you got to do what you got to do sometimes. So, again, Alan, hope that answers that question for you, and gives you a little bit of insight on maybe how that can work. All right, next question here is from Eric W. And Eric says, "What are some of your favorite fun drills to do at practice, and how do you do your conditioning for your players?" Well, Eric, first of all, very sneaky of you to sneak a 2-for-1 question in there. So, but I'll answer them both. And actually, when I think about it, with my fun drills, I usually like to weave my conditioning into some of my fun drills, believe it or not. And so I wrote a couple of them down though. That way you guys could get some insight here. So there's this one drill that a lot of my girls love a lot. I like it too, called Protect the Island. And it works best when you have, like, if you have 4 coaches. So for example, we'll put a coach at each bag. So home, first, second, and third, and they'll each have their own bucket of balls, or 8 to 10 balls. They're at the bag with them, and all the players are inside the baseline. Okay. And so every coach, so I'll start at home. I'll throw a ball up in the air. And then once and again, all 8 to 10, 12, however many players you have at practice, all of them are in the baseline there. And their job is to communicate and call the ball. And so as soon as somebody calls the ball, the rest of the players turn their attention to the next coach, right? So if I'm at home, I throw the first ball up into the air. Once it reaches its apex, the coach at first base, he throws one up into the air into the middle of the circle, and the one at second base does the same thing, and the one at third base does the same thing. And then we keep going around like that. The girls are all calling the ball. They're having to communicate a lot. It's a lot of fun, and again, I think it's a great way to have some fun, structured communication and drilling right with that. So that's a fun one. It's not really conditioning per se, but it's a fun drill. I like to play kickball, so I told you guys last week that I used to coach a women's kickball team, and I chuckle about that. Here's why: because I was 18, 19, 20 years old, guys. I went to school up at Georgia State University in Atlanta, and my dad actually had a kickball league called Kicking It Old School, right? And this was we played the league in Covington and Conyers, I think, a combination of the two. But guys, here I am, 18, 19, 20 years old, coaching 40 something year old women, sometimes 50 plus year old women, and believe it or not, I earned their respect. I really did. And so that was such a fun time in my life to just figure out who I could be as a coach. And I love it. We were the Royal Angels, actually. We were blue and white. We called ourselves the Royal Angels. So if any of you ladies are watching the show, I love y'all to death. Thank y'all so much for helping me become the coach that I am today. And by the way, I was Coach Young Gun to them. That was who they called me. Anyway, so again, I play kickball with my softball players in practice. Everybody knows how to play kickball, and we definitely peg from head to toe in kickball, no doubt. Another drill called over. I don't really know what it's called. I feel like we played it a couple of times when I was in high school, but I call it the over under drill. And my girls have a love hate relationship with this one. And actually, we played it a couple of weeks ago at practice, and I had an injured player. We call her Rope. And so Rope was injured, and so she couldn't participate in the drill. So she was assistant coach for the day at practice, right? And I'm getting ready to start a drill, and Rope's like, "Ooh, Coach Steve, we should play that over under game." I'm like, "You know what? Fantastic idea. Let's do it." And so the girls come up. I'm like, "Hey guys, we're changing the game or changing the conditioning drill for tonight. We're gonna play over under." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, whose idea was that?" And I'm like, Ropes. So anyway, they're all like tripping on rope or whatever. But anyway, it's a fun game and it's a great conditioning game. And here's how it works. So if you got say 5-on-5, okay, you got 10 girls at practice, you play 5-on-5. So the team on offense is going to hit the ball off the tee. Okay, so they're going to hit the ball wherever they please. The team on defense is going to spread out all over the field. Okay, so they're going to spread all over the field. Team on offense, they're hitting off the tee. So you got one person up on the tee. Boom, they drive the ball off the tee into right field. All right. She starts to run, and she's going to get 1 point for every base that she touches. Okay. That means that she gets, one for first, second, third, back to home. So that would be 4 points. Okay. And then she can continue running until everybody on the opposing team has run over to the ball wherever it lands, wherever it stops, or to its resting point. So it can be caught in the air, it can be stopped, whatever. But once the ball stops, that first person gets there, and then they everybody jumps into a line behind them, and then they go under their legs. The next person goes over their shoulders, under the legs, over their shoulders, and then the last person slams the ball down on the ground, and that's what stops the person from running around the bases, right? So as soon as they slam the ball down, the next person comes up. We put the ball on the tee, right? And you're probably thinking what I'm thinking here, or not. But everybody's in right field now on the opposing team, right? So that next girl comes up, boom, pulls the ball to left field. And now they got to run way on the other side of the field now. While that girl runs around the bases, gets as many points as she possibly can. They slam the ball down. And ultimately, you end up doing that for a couple of innings. And by the end of it, by usually about 3 innings in, the girls are pretty gassed, exhausted, and usually I make the losing team get a little bit more running in. So anyway, that's a fun drill, a great way to add in the conditioning as well. I love to play two-hand touch football or flag football, whichever. But we play with softball and gloves, so everybody keeps their gloves on, and we use a softball as a football. So far, no one's got hit in the head with the ball because you have a glove, so you should be able to catch. But anyway, but somebody asked me about that the other day. Like, have anybody hit in the head before? I'm like, no, not yet, but we'll see. Either way, so two-hand touch football, flag football, we just don't take any breaks. So that's the conditioning part of it. Is that as soon as somebody catches the ball, boom, it's second down, third down, whatever. We're moving up to the line, hut, hike, ready to go for the next one. Another drill is I love to. No, we don't. I feel like I don't do this enough, but I love, especially with our outfielders, we will do just a drill of flat out learning how to rob a home run. And again, this isn't something that happens a lot. Like it's kind of like having insurance, right? Like you don't really use it a whole bunch, but again, I think it's important to know how to rob a home run properly. And so, this is a drill that we do with our outfielders, but we'll also do it with the rest of the crew as well. And I love it. Again, not a bunch of conditioning per se with this, but it's just one that, I used to love doing this in the backyard, or, you're playing wiffle ball, or everybody, I know the guys, I mean, we would, definitely envision ourselves, robbing the home run, bottom of the seventh full count, 2 outs. We get a chance to win the game because you robbed the home run. So again, robbing home runs is one. The one that my players love the most probably is our slip and slide of wiffle ball games. We break out the dish detergent soap, the tarps, the water hose, get everything lathered up, and we're just playing straight wiffle ball, with the exception of the fact that you're sliding into every bag, and it's always a lot of fun. I enjoy that one a lot. The girls do too, as well as the guys. Um, oh, another one. So capture the flag. Capture the flag is a fun one. In this game, it's not a drill, but it's just a game, and you'd be surprised. Like we played this one kind of in the dark actually last summer. The lights wouldn't turn on at the ball field that we were at, and I think it gets dark around 8 something or whatever it was, and the lights wouldn't turn on. So we're like, well, you know what? We're gonna play a different drill because I think we had a drill planned for that night, hitting the softball or whatever, which would be dangerous in the dark, obviously. So we were like, all right, let's play capture the flag. And there was some good cardio in there. And myself and one of our guests that will be coming on the show here soon, Demarius Zachary, he's one of our coaches as well with Elite Diamonds. He was playing too, so we're all getting our cardio in and enjoying that. We'll also do some softball trivia where, you know, you win a prize if you win the trivia game, and if you don't win it, you got conditioning. So, again, those are just some of the fun ones that I like to do. I'm sure there's other ones that I've done in the past that I just can't recollect right now. But but I think that any of the drills that you may have to share, please share them in the comment section, because I know that there's other people on the show that want to listen and look for some drills for their teams too. So I think that'd be awesome. Okay, quick second. Um, I want to shout out one of our new players. Um, Very, very proud of her, as much as I am for any other player, obviously. But one of our new players, and I say new because she just joined the team. This is her senior year. Just joined the team a couple of months ago, on Elite Diamonds, and she plays for our gold team. So I've got the honor of coaching her, and her name's Logan Siegel. Goes to Locust Grove High School, and last week, y'all, she got an opportunity to sign her national letter of intent on National Signing Day, and so she's going to be going to Georgia College and State University to play softball. And she is a fantastic middle infielder, really good outfielder, coming to be into her growing into her own there as well. But more than anything, she's a great leader, and I'm really excited about what she's gonna do the rest of the year for our team. But also the growth that she's gonna have there going into college ball. So big shout out to Logan there. All right, so we got one more actually. Yeah, we do. Okay, yeah, we got one more question, and we're gonna take a quick break, and then I think we're wrapping this show up here pretty shortly. I hope this has been beneficial to you guys, by the way. All right, so last question we have is from Brandy H. Shout out to Brandy. I'm not mentioning last names just for privacy reasons, but Brandy was a good friend in college, so it's really cool to know that she's listening in and watching the show. Okay, so Brandy, she asked, "What are some ideas you have on strengthening my mental game on the field?" And Brandy actually played tennis, um, but she also plays competitive kickball now. So I'll ask that question again real quick. What are some ideas you have on strengthening my mental game on the field? This is a good one. I guess I got a couple things I could share on that. So one is, I think it's important to have like some type of visualization exercise where you're imagining yourself having success in different situations. And as it pertains to softball and baseball, I think about imagining that. I mean, I would play this out in the backyard with my friends where, you're shouting out the scenario in the backyard. It's like, yo, it's World Series Game 7, bottom of the ninth, full count, bases loaded. You're shouting out this scenario, and then guy pitches the wiffle ball in there, and then boom, you jack it over the fence, and in your mind the crowd goes wild, and it's amazing. I don't know. I hope everybody did that. I did. I don't know. Maybe that makes me crazy. I know some people on this show definitely did that, so I'm not the only one for sure. But my point is though is that visualizing that success I think is important, and putting yourself in that situation before you're in it. And I think ultimately that will take over, right? Because it's all your mind has been conditioned now that you've already been there, right? You've been there, done that. So my nanny always says, or my grandmother, she says, "Been there, done that." Got a T-shirt for it, right? Um, but since you've already been there in your mind, it should make it a little bit easier for your mental when you ultimately when you step on the field. So I hope that helps on that front. I think another thing to do though is that it could be worth practicing more mindfulness, right? And what I mean by that, kind of going back to the point of earlier in the show here about yoga, like how the yoga stimulates the mind, that meditation really helps. Um, Getting into some deep breathing exercises, and I know I'm kind of getting deep here with this, but I think this can really help. And if you're doing things like that, like I feel like it can really expand what you're doing and how you're doing it in an effective manner. And I think about one of my favorite players that I've gotten an opportunity to coach. I'm unapologetic about this, by the way, but about her being one of my favorites. But Kyra D. She's the only person in our softball organization to have her jersey number retired, number 11. So number 11 doesn't get worn at all in our organization anymore. But Kyra was one during the latter half of her career with us. She was really doing some really good visualization um, tactics, and we would talk through that a little bit. And I think she got really good at that, and I think it made her a better ball player, honestly, over time as she progressed and got ready to go to college too. So again, just doing things like that. I wrote down here also mindful observation. I thought about that for a second. So mindful observation is just a fancy way of saying like having attention to detail or noting every single detail. And I remember being in elementary school, checking out books from the library, and I would check out some of these I Spy books, right? And I haven't seen an I Spy book, y'all, in years. So if somebody comes across one, please let me know. I probably could find one on Amazon, honestly. But I Spy books are a great way to me, just in thinking about it at least, could be a great way to strengthen the mind and to really use that mindful observation tactic where you're having to really zero in on, okay, find this, whatever, and really kind of dial it in that way too. So I think that's a great way to strengthen your mental game on the field. And then one more way that I thought of earlier that I think I stole this from like chiropractor or somebody I was talking to here recently, but he was talking about doing what he calls body scans. And it's where you basically where you close your eyes and you're doing a mental scan of your body, and you're taking note of what areas of your body have tension, discomfort, those types of things. And again, I guess once you've identified that, then it's just at that point it's just about making that part of the body better, focusing on that, making sure that it can be something that can be fixed and worked on. So again, those are some tactics to use. Beyond that, I think as far as the mental game is concerned, Brandy, setting some attainable goals is a great way to do that. Having a positive outlook on what you're doing, just remembering that what you do is a game at the end of the day. So don't, not getting too worked up over that. But yeah, I mean, I really think that could be beneficial to everybody. So I hope that makes sense, Brandy. Thank you as always for jumping on the show. And so again, we're going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Shout out one of our last sponsors here before we wrap up, and then I'm going to give you our quick little thoughts you should know moment, and we'll get out of here. Hey guys, thanks for pausing one last time before we wrap up the show. I just want to take a second to highlight Flow Space Co-working as one of our business partners. It's Lake Oconee's very first co-working location with plenty of entrepreneurs, remote workers, creatives. So if you're looking for a place to focus, be creative, and amplify productivity, come check us out at goflowspace.com. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, welcome back. We are unfortunately on the back end of the episode. I hope this has, again, been one that you've gotten something out of thus far. But I've got two things today. in the Thoughts You Should Know segment. And again, this is usually just something that I've read or seen or what have you, but I saw this the other day and I felt like it was relevant or can be relevant to you and I. And it was a quote from Usain Bolt. And I think everybody knows Usain Bolt, the phenomenal Jamaican track runner, owns a lot of gold medals and probably may never be broken record wise. So, but Usain Bolt, he said that I used to train for 2 years just to run for 9 seconds. And some people will quit after not seeing results in 2 months. And that resonated with me because I I can be that way too in some areas of my life. I think that I'm a smaller framed guy, and I think about my workout habits. I don't. I've tried to bulk up in some areas and haven't had that success that I've wanted to have in the time frame that I was wanting to have it. And I'm like, forget it. I'll just be a runner all my life, because that's what I'm good at. But I hope that resonates with you, and I hope that you can apply that to some piece of your life. And before you even start a New Year's resolution, as this calendar year is winding down and all that, don't even go into all of that. I think that it's important that you look at just some areas of your life that maybe you wanted to target. And again, kind of going back to the question about strength in the mental game, set some attainable goals for yourself. And if at first you don't succeed, right, in the time frame that you were looking for, just keep going. See what can happen beyond that. Because I think that was really powerful quote to think about from Usain Bolt, where he says, I trained for 2 years just to run for 9 seconds. So again, that's one. And then the other one, I was actually reading my notebook. I think as some of you may or may not know, but I've been in the financial services industry for 9 years. Actually, 9 years ago this week, I got into the financial services industry while I was a junior in college. And one of my mentors would always tell me back then, it's like, hey, Demetrius, next to the Bible, one of the most important books you'll ever read is your notebook, because that's where your raw thoughts are coming from. That's where you're in the moment, and you may be at a conference, or you may be listening to a podcast, or whatever the case may be. But your notebook is such an important book to revisit. So all of you out there who have journals and notebooks and things like that, don't forget to read the old ones and see where you come from. But here's what I read in my notebook. And I was preparing to have a chat with some of my business partners, and I actually remember that this used to be my email tagline for quite a while. And I don't know where this came from or how it came to my mind, but I said here to myself, I said, Demetrius, don't forget, make plans like an adult and believe in them like a child. And in that moment, what I was saying to myself was, be a responsible adult, because at that time I was a very young adult, like teenager, 20, maybe 21 at best. But I was saying, grow into the responsible person that you can be, um, and make plans like an adult, because adults are very good at being responsible usually, and we're very good at being strategic and thorough and things of that nature. However, we're not very good at believing all the time, because and this has been so beautiful. It's crazy that this quote's coming back up, because my daughter is going to be 4 years old in 4 days. And guys, she is all in. When she believes in something, she is all in. Like right now, she will put on one of her princess dresses, and it is, I am Belle, I am Aurora, I am, whoever she is in that moment. Like, she is all in on it. I'm Elsa, I'm Anna, whoever, and you better play the role of whoever she says that you are. So if she's Elsa and she calls me Olaf, then dadgummit, I'm Olaf today. So you know what I mean? So, but my point is that she is very strong and she has a very strong conviction about what she believes in that moment. And that quote, make plans like an adult and believe in them like a child, for us is important, because we're good at making plans, we're good at being responsible, we're good at being thorough and all that jazz, but don't forget to have the belief in what you are planning. Don't forget to have the proper belief in your dreams that you set out for. So, again, as always, guys, I hope that resonates with you, and I hope that can add value to your thought process. And as you begin to head into this holiday season and get a chance to see family members and friends, and for some of you, miss family members and miss friends, obviously during this time, and I know how tough that can be. Um, you know, take the time to be a kid again in some areas, and see where that gets you. So I'm going to sign this thing off. And as I always say, let all you do be done in love. Because at the end of the day, guys, that's truly what makes the world go round. We'll see you next week.